Data and information. What's the difference? In this video, I want to speak a little bit about data, a little bit about information, and then I want to show you how they are not the same. Let's get started. If you have a question that you want answered, or if you have a problem you want solved, you might ask ChatGPT or Google or your parent or your professor or your priest. What you're doing when you're asking people what they think is collecting data. Data comes in two different forms. One of them is numerical. That's called quantitative data. The other is non-numerical. That's called qualitative data. Both of these are going to be data that is uninterpreted information. And when you're asking 10 different people what they think about your question or your problem, you're not sure whose answer is the best one or whose answer is going to help you with your particular situation. But what you're doing is collecting that data. Qualitative are descriptions that are going to be non-numerical, and the quantitative is the stuff that is numerical. And we don't know what you're going to collect that's actually going to be useful for you. That's the difference between data and information. Data is not useful until somebody interprets it and thinks about it and reflects on it. Imagine a funnel where a bunch of stuff is going in, and then once it's in, it gets processed. If you imagine that this is your thinking process, data is what goes in. The data that gets analyzed or categorized or thought about in some way, grouped together in a way that makes sense given your goals, what you end up with is information. Information is processed data so that the data becomes useful. Without processing, you just have data. And data doesn't serve a purpose. It's just statistics. It's just a numerical or non-numerical facts. When you take that information and you reflect on it and you confirm that it really is true, that's when you end up with intelligence. Another word here, it would be understanding. Another word here would be knowledge. And these three words, they don't mean the same thing. Intelligence, knowledge, understanding, those are not the same. But in this context, they're implying that you have the right answer to your question or the right solution to your problem. So you have three different steps here. If you're trying to answer a question or solve a problem, you have to go and find statistics that may or may not be relevant. When you gather that data, then you interpret it, you pick out what is useful, and now you've got information. Information can be false because data could be misleading. But data by itself cannot be false. It might be misleading. Information can be true or false. So here's three different ideas. Data turns into information. Information is useful categorized data. Some data turns into information, but not all data does. Some information turns into knowledge, but not all information does. Okay, these are a lot of markings on the board. Let's slow things down. We're going to go one by one, and we're going to mark which one of these two has this description. Okay, which one of these, or both or neither, can be made up of images, text, graphs, dates, distances, names, or temperatures? Data definitely can involve any of those things. And information usually will also be described in these ways, but it will be more than that. And the more than that is because when you have information, you have the data that usually comes in any form that's organized in a way that makes sense given your question or given your problem. So some people will say, no, information wouldn't come as these kinds of things, but it can. Data always does. Has meaning. Data or datum has no meaning until somebody comes along to reflect on the data, turning it into something that serves a purpose. Information always has meaning. Data does not have meaning. How about this one? Is sufficient for decision making. Data on its own is not alone enough to make any kinds of decisions. It's just collecting facts, some of which might be irrelevant, but information does have what it takes, is sufficient for decision making. Last one, shows how content is connected. Data will not show how content is connected, but information can and usually does show how data points all fit together and are related. So stepping back, there are a lot of differences between data and information. Data is some kind of content that does not have meaning and cannot be used for making decisions and does not show you how content is connected, but information can do all of those things. Information is data that's been processed and reflected on, going through that funnel, that can turn into knowledge. Data can turn into information by somebody processing it. And information can turn into knowledge by somebody reflecting on it.